So for each EV charger, the standard is going to be that they have their own certification, right? So once you purchase a ABB charger or Empora, any of those, all of them have their own standard of how they've configured their device and have their own methods on how you can work on these devices. Some of them allow, you see, just like the ones that he said, I just open up there over on the table, where you are able to swap out parts. Some of them come with a full unibody, so you will not be able to open it. Once it goes bad, their recommendation is for you to buy a new one. They don't believe in changing, repairing, or doing any adjustments to their chargers. For the ABB chargers, we have been doing a couple of installations for JPS with those. Those chargers, let me see if I can give you a quick. I didn't even bring any tools with me. But this is the unit. Yeah. And you can pull down the device completely. And you feed in your cable into one of these dummy sockets and make your connections. And then also on the inside, you see some additional ports. You can plug it into a network. So you can have a network cable feeding into it instead of using Wi-Fi. So that you will have direct access to your network and you will be able to communicate without having any drop-in link and that kind of stuff, especially if you're far away from any access point. And you want to have it also on the inside, when you open it up, you will see a slot that's there for a SIM card, where you can install like a SIM card if you want to be able to connect to the internet using a SIM card. This is good for like remote areas. So like if you have something out in the country and you don't have any building nearby to connect the device to, you can put in that SIM card like how you use in your phone. And once you set up the SIM card, you can have it have internet access. That's like how you have your phone having internet access.
Like a GSM module or something? Like
yes.
GPRS.
Yeah, so you can have it having internet right there just by using the SIM card. So the communications will continue. Unfortunately, with our local network, it doesn't seem to be stable. So what we find is while monitoring it, sometimes it comes offline and goes back online. However, the good thing is that the device itself have a built-in memory. So it will remember between that drop period that you're not able to communicate with the device, when it comes back online, you will see the data come back in for that, just the same. All right, so yeah guys, so just make sure and try to always certify yourself. And if any new certifications come out, which I'm sure a lot going to come out for EV charging, just try to get as familiar as possible with them. There is, even though you're not going to be a mechanic, you see some certifications there. There are some certifications out there that you can utilize, and it's like online free certifications that it teaches you about EVs. So it will tell you about so just like how you saw me bring up the different images with the, you know, like the car and the breakdown of the car and what the motor does, and all of that you can just go online and you can actually search for those free images and this free information. It's there online for you. You just watch the videos, clips. They will give you a full breakdown of what the vehicle is like. As I said, I know you're not going to be a mechanic. However, the thing is that you always want to know what you're connected to. And your customers are confident in you when you know as much as possible about the whole entire environment and not just your device. Right. So if the customer said to you, oh boy, I don't know, the car just not charging, right? You must be able to ask a few questions like, so is there a light on your charger? And they say yes. Well, you know, is there a light in your car? You know, so you must be able to ask a few questions that can evaluate, you know, if it's something to do with your equipment or it can be something that is wrong with the actual vehicle itself and they need to bring it into a mechanic. So try to familiarize yourself with the whole entire environment and not just the chargers itself if you're being an installer. We don't have anybody locally right now. I am working on that right now. So maybe within the next year or so, I'm trying to get some accreditation from some external bodies to be able to have a program that can teach you everything about EV charging locally. But as I said, so even if I touch base and teach you about my specific charger, which I can, it still doesn't help you with another brand. And there are so many brands out there. So that's why I'm saying most of the brands, if you go onto their websites, you would see they have free certifications as a part of that on the website. They don't charge for it. You just log in. You can just go to the section that asks you, I would like to be an installer. Once you get into that section, it would normally give you the different certifications that they have. And you can do endless amount of certification just for knowledge. Most of them are like 20 minutes, 30 minutes worth of material that you go through and they answer a few questions and it tells you that you're certified.
Which companies?
You still, even though you have those certifications, it doesn't mean anything. You have to have a GEI certification to be doing any form of installation. You have to have your government have to approve you. If you leave from here today and go to the United States and you have installed 1 million chargers in Jamaica, you're going to have to do a governing body certification to state that you are a licensed electrician and you are allowed to be working on the equipment. So aside from the installer certifications, make sure that you have a certification that covers you to be working on any electrical equipment. All right, so I'm not going to dive all the way down into all of this material. However, this is our standard operating procedures. Pretty much our operating procedures, what we have done is go through and do a guideline as to each technician that comes into our company and do any install for us. These are some of the things that we have them follow. What we use is we use other standards from other countries and then we adjusted them to suit us here in Jamaica as well, right? We have different codes that when you go to a business place, there are different codes that different institutions have. Some of them don't even want it, especially with JPS. We have done installs for them. However, we are not allowed to run any electricals from their panel onto the outskirts to where we would have operated. So you will find a lot of institutions, a hotel, they want their internal persons that normally deals with their infrastructure to do all cablings to the endpoint that we would be making our connections. So every company has their own governing code. So you just abide by their codes and still cross-check. So even though they said, hey, we are putting that cable, make sure you go through that cable with, make sure that all the cabling that has been done by them. You go through, check it and cross-check it and get it inspected before doing your installation. Because what you might find is that the hotel has somebody, however, they might have not followed a protocol that you would have put in place to do in your install.
They have a specific system.
Yeah, so we decided that, hey, you know what? We use 6mm wires to connect these. However, they put in some 2.5 wires. And because you didn't check to see what they put in, you install your equipment, it's malfunctioning, it breaks, something bad happens, and then you're like, oh, well, we didn't do the electricals. It's still going to boil back down to you being at fault because you should have done your due diligence to make sure it's a safe environment to connect that device to. So you check their breaker panel, make sure the right size main breaker is there, because what you're going to find is that in a breaker panel, suppose you're installing a 40 amp breaker to run one of these, right? The main breaker that comes in from outside on the main is a 40 amp. and you already have the whole entire house connected to it, would you go and connect a 40 amp to that? Even though there's space for it? It don't have a necessary chip. It will work. But what could happen? You might overload the circuit and burn down the whole house. You see how extreme that is? I didn't even make it sound pretty. It never trip. Burn on the whole entire house. Because guess what? It comes under load and it don't trip. It starts to run hot and the whole entire thing just starts to burn. So we always make sure that the main that comes from the breaker that comes from the main is a right size amperage for what you're putting onto it. And you're not looking at just, you see 100 amp breaker in there. However, inside of the panel, you have 20 AC unit, you have a dryer, washer, you have other devices connected and whatever, and it works fine. The whole entire infrastructure works fine. You install your 40 amp breaker and it still causes a problem. You know why? The breaker can't support all of the other elements of what's happening. And also with this device, it's different from every other device in your household. Anybody know why? It's different from every other single device in your home. It's constant power. Everything else has startup power. So when you have an AC unit, it starts up at 20 amp. Or it uses a full 220 and it starts up at 20 amp. However, it kicks down. So it doesn't use 20 amp the whole entire leg.
And the machine starts and stops.
The dryer, everything else, up and down, up and down. It doesn't have, but this, once you plug it in, boom, 40 amp, consistently, right till it's finished, charge. All right, so the difference is it doesn't have fluctuating current. Okay. Yeah, because everything else comes with a mechanical mechanism. So like your fridge would have like a little
Current monitor.
Yeah, so it chips, the compressor chips in and chips out. And it's the compressor that uses the electricity. Your, what else? The washing machine, dryer, all of those, the motors fluctuate and do different things. It's not at the same revolution all the time. This, 40, straight, or 16 amps, straight. Whatever it is plugged in, that straight amount of current is being pulled from start to finish. So this is why it's so important for you to make sure that whatever you're installing, check the breaker panel first. Make sure that the breaker can accommodate the device. Make sure once you add this device to it, there's no other device. If you turn on a dryer, if you turn on the AC, it must be able to still run in collaboration with a constant 40 amp. All right, what else? Let's see. My next standard of operation is you must be certified by the government to be able to work on any electrical component before doing any job. And if you are not certified, the final connection, because you have companies that are out there that you can't expect every certified, GE certified person to be going around and connecting, right? You have workers that work with them. So they would come and run the pipes and do everything, and you have a team of people who probably doing those stuff. But you see the actual connection of these cables must be terminated by a GEI certified person. Must. And it must be recorded so that we can have accountability for that installation. And that is one of our standards. All right, for outdoor spaces, what we try to do is we try to minimize any form of potential damage or harm in the environment. So what we do is if you go on a site, so let's say we go to JPS's parking lot and they say, hey, we want to put in a charge station. What we have to identify downstairs is to make sure that wherever we put in the charge station, it is out of the way of any vehicle to be able to hit it or damage it for any reason, hit it over and cause the wires to pull apart and start to have an electrical circuit where it's open. So that's why we put in the barriers
Just a bit
those
like-
metal barriers that you see, the yellow, I don't know if you see the ones downstairs, we can have a look at it when we're done. But we have metal barriers in front of those devices because what we want to make sure is that we put everything in place to prevent from somebody hitting over the unit and we're exposing those electrical currents to people.
Oh, so you're the ones who install the chargers, right?
Downstairs, yes. So where that is concerned, we try to make sure to look for the safest place to place the charger, whether on a curb, and then also what we do is try to always make sure if we're putting down a charger, we have it on a platform. So we raise it off the ground a little bit to ensure that if any form of flooding or even if it's a slight flooding, you don't want the water to be mixing with electricity. So we try to make sure that we have a platform that raises up the unit off the ground at least a couple feet. For like underground parking, like if we decide, say we're going to install some chargers in an underground parking, we'll have to go in and evaluate and make sure that we have the charger at a height that even if the basement should be flooded up to my height, the charger is still out of the range of being in that flooded area. So we always evaluate the underground parkings and make sure that the charger is at a high enough point that we won't have it in any form of water. All right, so this is as I said, we have a lot of protocols. We try to make sure that key thing for safety. We make sure we take care of the children. We just make sure we keep it out of the area. Like we don't put any near any playgrounds. You know, we try to encourage the customers if they're going to do stuff like that. It be in an enclosed space away from children. We don't want them playing with it. We also, yes, we mentioned the barriers already. We do the barriers. We use the pillars to make sure we don't install. By the way, this is one of the most key things. And I see this happen every single time. I go to this one right here where it says don't put it next to any propane, gas tanks or anything like that. Yeah, it's a common thing with Jamaica. We have a stove and we have the gas cylinder right next to where the car charge. And I said, well, we can't install it because you have a gas cylinder coming out of your kitchen and it's right there and you're going to park the car right beside the gas cylinder and charge. Impossible. Yeah, so we never ever install beside a gas cylinder, right? That are the most hazardous because all it takes is for the hose or something to come loose and that spark from that charge explosion, right? So anytime you go anywhere, if you see this, stop immediately. Customer cannot happen. They have to figure out a different way, whether it's to move the cylinder away from that area and not even, we don't even want the hose to be running on the outside. So even if they had the cylinder here and the stove is on the inside, they have to carry the insulation of the hose on the inside and bore a hole and go through that wall out to next door. We don't want it on the outskirts here in the garage because it still can be hazardous. Somebody can pass, damage that hose and that hose start leak gas and then you have a spark. Yeah, read your manuals. Make sure you always check in on new materials and any safety updates that might come out from the company that you're installing from, and keep up to date with your certificates.